Hi, I'm Janine Mills, and it is my honor and pleasure to welcome you to our inaugural show for ICABA-TV's Millionaire Moves the Wealth Choice. We have a stellar cast of highly accomplished leaders committed to helping you achieve success and create wealth. Your host is the founder and chief servant officer of ICABA World Network, Jerome Hutchinson Jr., a visionary social impact entrepreneur who has created an online global ecosystem, assisting hundreds of Black professionals and entrepreneurs worldwide to succeed, lead, and prosper. Next, we have Dr. William Pickard, author of Millionaire Moves and Surviving the Shift, one of America's most successful entrepreneurs, philanthropists, and highly influential business leaders. Next to Dr. Pickard, we have America's foremost thought leader and speaker on Black success and wealth creation, Dr. Dennis Kimbro. Dr. Kimbro is the author of several best-selling books, including The Wealth Choice: Success Secrets of Black Millionaires and the classic Think and Grow Rich: The Black Choice.
I am so excited and glad to have you. I want to take a minute to tell you a little bit about what to expect. So we have the winning combination. So we talk a lot of times about what happens when you have theory, practice, academia, without, if you will, the practical aspects of how you put to work those things that we learn in theory. Well, we're covering both bases. We have a entrepreneur extraordinaire in Dr. Pickard, and we have the foremost thought leader and speaker and researcher. Well, a lot of people don't really know, because Dennis is such a dynamic speaker and author, that his true passion is actually research, which actually means you're kind of a nerd.
Thank you.
But the coolest nerd you will ever meet, because you never would know. But he truly is a passionate man about data and research. And we as Black people are so fortunate that you have, if you will, dedicated your life to finding out what it is that makes the great great. What it is that creates success in our community. And then we take a guy like Bill. Bill has made not only himself wealthy, but he's also made others wealthy. And so success becomes all about you when you only look out for yourself. But Bill is significant. And his significance is because what he has done for others.
Most definitely.
He didn't write Millionaire Moves in order to become a best-selling author or to sell a bunch of books so that he could add to his bank account. He wrote it because he wanted to provide information that was going to be critical to help us to achieve business success and to be able to create wealth. Dennis did not create, if you will, the wealth choice just for himself. He spent 7 years interviewing 1,000 Black millionaires. And I never forget when your daughter told me 6 years ago that you also made them do a survey, okay? And it was not like a 2-question survey from what I remember. And so regular folks don't like taking surveys, much less millionaires. So we've got 2 people today that really are dynamic. And so I've set the stage. Hold on to your seats. Open up your minds and get ready for them to pour something into you that you did not know before you came into this room, or affirm something that you suspected that they are going to validate for you today. So right now, I'm going to start with Bill, and we'll talk a little bit about you. And so I want you to share a little bit about your story of how you came to be Bill Pickard, how you went from being a social worker. Okay, you guys probably don't know that this, wealthy entrepreneur started out as a social worker.
Well, I'm certain that most of you are very well read, and most of you are very well preached to. So you've heard of Reverend Ike. And Reverend Ike said the best way to help poor people, don't be one.
Don't be one.
So, but seriously, my life reflects what can be done. I'm not the smartest knife in the drawer, obviously, but given a reasonable chance, and having a group of people around you that encourage you is why Bill Pickard exists today. Not because I'm tall, dark, and handsome, which I am, but because God saw fit to surround me with a number of people that have just lifted my life up. And I won't get into Carl Bell, but Carl's only been with me, well, we've known each other 50 years, but about 10 of those years we worked together. And if I had met Carl when I was 22, I'd have some real money by now, but I am where I am. So that's Bill Pickard's story, but the reflection of what I hope and pray for every day, that if Bill Pickard can become wealthy in America, anybody can do it. Even black people and even poor white people. I believe that from the bottom of my heart.
Well, Bill, do me a favor. Share with the audience. You've told me this story before about when you had the meeting, I think it was Ford Motor Company, and they offered you a dealership. And you decided that you didn't want a dealership. You hear that, folks? So a man brings you in, says, we want to give you an auto dealership. One of the fastest, most proven success, track records of building wealth in franchising is an auto dealership. Okay? There's no doubt about it. So somebody standing in front of you basically saying, you take this, you're going to be a millionaire. You said no. Why?
Well, there's an advantage to not being very bright. I mean, I just didn't know. I mean, it could have been bicycles as far as I'm concerned. But I did know this. I knew that the guys in manufacturing employed a lot more people than the people with dealerships. And secondly, I had heard that the guys in manufacturing and the ladies in manufacturing oftentimes own multiple manufacturing situations. So unfortunately, I chose to manufacturing.
Unfortunately. Well, let's see. At last count, in your bio, I think there's, multiple plants throughout the Midwest that are operated by Global Automotive Alliance, which you are the board chairman of. Let's just share with the audience, because let them know, I know you're being humble, but let them know a little bit about what Global Automotive Alliance is and what it represents.
Well, again, I go back to the essence of America. And I know this sounds like hunky-dunky stuff, but I really believe that anyone in this room can do and quadruple what I have accomplished. I bought a company that was in bankruptcy. I think it was doing $8 million. And I own a couple of McDonald's. And there's a Ken Brown here today. Ken? Is Ken Brown here? There's a guy here named Ken Brown, a McDonald's guy. And I was able to take those McDonald's and flip them and raise money to buy more manufacturing situations. And of course, manufacturing is a greater multiple than McDonald's would ever be. So again, no rocket science. I'm not an engineer. I'm not an accountant. I'm a social worker. But yet God saw fit to put me in those positions.
Well, Bill, the takeaway here is don't sleep on the simple message. So when Bill says that he is, if you will, just a simple guy, what he is saying, you can do it too. There's nothing that he has that you don't have. Is that fair?
Very,
Okay.
very fair.
And if you tap into the big guy, all things are possible.
Every day. Bam.
All right. Well, we're going to take a commercial break. And after the commercial break, we're going to come back and we're going to talk to Dr. Kimbro.
ICABA-TV Millionaire Moves, the Wealth Choice. This episode is brought to you by PNC Private Bank.
Level up your success with the ICABA World Network, where accomplished Black professionals and entrepreneurs have created a thriving global ecosystem built from valuable connections and impactful collaborations. Be a part of a trusted network that uplifts, inspires, and enhances your success. Join like-minded and leading Black professionals to foster meaningful relationships, unlock opportunities, and access the resources you need to thrive in your career, business, and life. Go to ICABAWorldNetwork.com and join today.
I grew up around blueprints, so I have a natural affinity for real estate. My grandfather was a developer, so that's how I got involved in real estate. So that's what started our business almost 23 years ago.
Well, I got involved in real estate because before getting married 17 years ago, the first thing that my wife asked me to do is make sure that I get my real estate license. So it's been 17 years. Well, the things that we do at Exclusive Real Estate involves a variety of things. But one, we're very, very passionate about one most important thing, is helping you find a place that inspires your purpose.
How do we do this? We actually take the time to listen to our clients, find out their needs, find out what their goals are in order to help them meet their needs so that we can find places that inspire their purpose.
We actually help the client with our experience in code enforcement and title resolve a major title issue. They were buying a large investment, several $1 million, and we found out for that particular client that they had a deed restriction. They could not use the property after they purchased it. The lawyers didn't pick it up, but my wife, with her background and title, picked that issue up. In addition to that, we also saved that client about $70,000 in liens and fines based on the background that I have in code enforcement.
Our teamwork and collaboration has helped so many clients move forward, whether it's transforming lives, shaping communities, or achieving legacy. We find places that
Inspires your purpose. How can we help you in anything that you feel that is challenging for you in real estate? Give us a call. We're here to help you.
We're back now from a break, and the audience has a few questions. And so I'm going to first talk to Dennis about a few things that learn a little bit more about Dennis. And then we've got some questions here, and there are a couple of interesting ones too. So, so Dennis, you are by far what I consider to be the foremost thought leader on Black success and wealth creation. Okay, and I know you well enough to know that your commitment is to the work and to the struggle. Okay, and wanting us to get to the point where we are becoming wealthier and more self-empowering and self-determining. What was it that made you decide to take on this passion? What came in you that got you into this?
Well, number one, thanks, Hutch. Hey, man, I love you, my brother. Thanks for having me here. And Bill Pickard, I mean, he's an icon in terms of entrepreneurship. But arguably, the best advice I received, two pieces of advice. One, when I was at Northwestern working on my doctorate, my committee chair said to me, he said, Dennis, don't look at your dissertation as a requirement that you're fulfilling for your degree. He said, look at it as your first book. So I defended my dissertation, and literally a couple of months, if that, later, I turned to my wife and I said, Pat, I know my first book. And she said, good. And I said, you know how I studied wealth and poverty among underdeveloped nation states? She said, yeah. I said, well, I'm going to make a change. I said, number one, I don't want to study poverty. And number two, I don't want to study underdeveloped nation states. I want to study African Americans. So I'm a Johnny-come-lately to this, Hutch. I haven't done anything special. You praise me and what I've done. I'm a teacher. I'm in the classroom every Tuesday and Thursday, been doing that for more than 30 years. But the fact of the matter is that Black America's most prolific scholar, W.B. Du Bois, he wrote the seminal book in 1897 called The Negro in Business. Now, the only way you're going to get a copy of that book is go to some of your better university libraries, and we have one at Clark, Atlanta, the Woodruff Library that's in the AUC with Clark, Morehouse, and Spelman. And all the librarians know me in the library. I come in there, and if I want to see the book, they'll place me in a carrel, they'll put the white gloves on, and they will bring the book out, sit outside the room that I'm in there, flipping through the pages. But if you just read the first 30 pages of that book, Du Bois has two profound statements. He said, number one, the man and woman who won't control his or her finances won't control anything else. Now, when he says anything else, he means that if you don't care about the money in your pocket, what do you care about high school dropout rates of Black America? If you don't care about the money in your pocket, what do you care about black on black crime? And then number two, he says, nothing positive will ever occur in the community that fails to circulate its dollars. He said that in 1897. You know, when you look at black buying habits, no one circulates money more than East Indians. The average dollar stays in the East Indian community for minimum 45 days before leaving. Number two is the Asian community, 24 days before leaving. Number three, the Jewish communities, 19 days before leaving. But Black America, 6 hours. And it wasn't always like that. When you go back to 1921, Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I knew this within the first year I was at the University of Oklahoma undergraduate. Those 3,600 square blocks, Greenwood, Archer, and Pine, you had more than 600, 700 black businesses. They told me in 1921 the black dollar stayed in that community a year and a half before leaving. So, the second part to that question, I really got the idea for this book, and I gotta give props where props is due. I interviewed, yes, I quit counting at 150 interviews for my first book, Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice. But I got 3 books out of all the interviews that I had, and I never repeated the same interview twice. One was Andy Young, Ambassador Young, and I met him and interviewed him several times. But when he told me, the first interview we had, he said, me and Dr. King, we integrated the lunch counter, but we never integrated the dollar. And I said, Mr. Ambassador, what are you talking about? I said, how do you integrate the dollar? He said, somebody has got to give us the keys, the skill set, the mindset to live and and make a being in a capitalistic economy. And Hutch, capitalism is not a dirty word. Capitalism means everything is for sale. If you take the word capitalism, write it on a piece of paper, C-A-P-I-T-A-L-I-S-M, and take the Latin derivative of that word, kaput. Well, what does it mean in Latin? It means head. So my students say, well, Dr. Kimbro, what in the world are you talking about? I tell them that in terms of capitalism, what is the one thing you got to use in order to survive? You got to use your head. So I had an opportunity when I started working on that book. I was still taking time away from my job. I was a pharmaceutical sales rep at the time. And here I am, I'm in a doctor's office. And the Lord spoke to me as he so often does, Hutch and Bill. I'm in a doctor's office and I'm waiting to go back to present, what's in my bag. And I reached down, and in this doctor's office, they had old copies of Time magazine. And I picked up an old copy of a Time magazine that had Martin Luther King on the cover. And I'm reading the article. And it said, when Dr. King led the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955, there were only 5 black millionaires in the United States. And gave the names, wrote the names in the article. How long did you think it took me to go ahead and write letters for interviews to meet the 5? Of the 5, 4 were still living. Number 1, T.M. Alexander. T.M. Alexander, when he graduated from Morehouse College in 1944, as a graduation gift, his uncle gave him a $100 bill. Did he blow the money? Did he splurge? Did he go on a spending debt? He did none of that. What did he do? He opened up his first insurance company. Number 2, right there in Birmingham, Alabama, A.G. Gaston. I spent the better part of a day with him, more than 4 hours in his office, and I asked him every question in the book. And by that time, I was going through so much financial strain and everything, and he said to me halfway through the interview, he said, young man, what is wrong? What's going on with you? And I shared where I was financially, and I said I wouldn't blame if my wife and kids left me, and this, I don't know if anybody's ever going to read this book. He lit up his pipe, and he said to me, young man, tell me when you're through. And I said, Dr. Gaston, you didn't hear what I said. He said, I heard every word you said, but let me give you some advice. He says, greatness takes time. Fear not. The acceptable person must be tested in the furnace of adversity. But young man, if you are comfortable where you are, then you need to step aside for someone who isn't. I went up to Chicago and I killed 2 birds with 1 stone in Chicago, S.B. Fuller and John Johnson of Ebony Magazine. I might be the last individual to interview John Johnson because I interviewed him on 3 separate times. And he gave me profound wisdom. He said, if you really want to find the mindset of an individual, all you got to do is look at his or her bank account. And that resonated with me and went back to what Du Bois said. So that was the path that I was on. Now you fast forward the videotape to 2000, actually late 1900s. And there I am, I'm in my MBA class with 2nd year MBA students, okay? And we got the case study, I'm ready to dive in, I take the cufflinks off, I'm rolling up my sleeves, I'm walking around, and before I got started, one of my students said, Kimbro, are you working on any books? And I said, yes, the book that I'm working on is Black Millionaires. And he said, tell us about it. And I said, well, I developed a survey, I'm asking 180 questions, and I told him that when Tom Stanley wrote The Millionaire Next Door, when Tom Stanley wrote The Millionaire Next Door, he had a 247 question survey, and he was only 4 miles away from Clark, Atlanta, because he taught at Georgia State. But the Census Bureau not only knew how many white millionaires in the United States, they gave Stanley zip codes. Right now, there are 62 million millionaires around the globe. Of the 62 million millionaires, 20 million are in the United States. Of the 20 million in the United States, 1.79 million are African American. And of that 1.79, through that 118 question survey that I used, I surveyed, interviewed, and held focus groups with slightly more than 1,000.
Wow. Whew. Man, folks.
Teach.
Can you imagine being a student at Clark Atlanta University?
Well, midterms are coming out. You better wait.
And this is your teacher? Okay. Because that is his day job.
Can I interrupt for a moment?
Yes, sir.
I know all these people in here are very learned Negroes. But would you tell them just a little bit about Mr. S.B. Fuller?
Oh, yeah, he was the dean and godfather of black entrepreneurs. From S.B. Fuller alone in Chicago, Illinois, came John Johnson, came George Johnson, hair care manufacturer, came Joe Dudley, who's in North Carolina right now. Here is, and I wrote, and that's how I got hooked up with the Napoleon Hill Foundation, because I wrote a story, and Success Magazine came to me when I was working on What Makes the Great Great. They heard about what I was doing. I got a few speaking engagements and this, that, and everything, and we're going back in the 1980s. So they contacted me, and they said, Dennis, we want you to write a series of articles on black entrepreneurs and black salespeople. And I said, no, you don't want me here. Just take a look at my manuscript. That shows you how naive I was. He said, no, we like your writing style. We want to write it specifically. So I wrote 3 articles for him, and one was on S.B. Fuller. The article that was on S.B. Fuller made it to the desk of W. Clement Stone in the Napoleon Hill Foundation, and he was the individual who called me up. I had just returned home from spending a day in New York with Earl Graves of Black Enterprise magazine. And when I got home, my wife said, man, your answer machine is going crazy. Some guy from Chicago keeps calling up. I tell him that you're not here, blah, blah, blah. And so I got home late at night and I hit it, and he said, young man, we heard about you. When can you come to Chicago? I would like to meet you. Well, it took me about 2 weeks, me and my wife, 2 weeks to go ahead and get the money for hotel lodging, rent a car, and the airline tickets. And I didn't have the slightest idea what he had in mind, but I knew, okay, Napoleon Hill Foundation, I got the book right here. I didn't know what he had in mind. So I flew up there in his palatial office, big mahogany desk. He's got a Havana cigar, bright, polka dot bow tie, surrounded by a sea of lieutenants. And they took me into his office, and I sat across from his desk, and he said, young man, you're not the first person going around the country interviewing black millionaires, successful African Americans. And I said, excuse me, I'm not? And he said, no. And he reached across his credenza and he said, Napoleon Hill was doing this at the time of his death. I said, you gotta be kidding me. He reached across his credenza and pulled out the last 100 written pages by Napoleon Hill and dropped it on my lap. And I said, he said, we got a proposition for you. And I said, what is that, Mr. Stone? He said, we want you to finish and update a book. And I said, what book? He said, the book in your lap. He said, open it up. And I picked it up. It was 100 pages. And here it's really not ironic. This is the Lord talking to you. Okay, so I'm flipping through this, and even though Hill never interviewed, he had 4 interviews in those 100 pages. And even though Napoleon Hill never interviewed him, I did.
ICABA-TV Millionaire Moves, the Wealth Choice. This episode is brought to you by PNC Private Bank.
Bill, I want you to just kind of give a real quick answer to what does it take to managing several different businesses? What's maybe one of the key things that you have to be able to do?
Delegation.
There you go. All right. Rapid fire. I got a question for you. All right. What would you suggest as the first move to scale a small business?
Number 1, believe in yourself when no one else will.
All right. See? Hey, man. And what are the financial mistakes that you made that you would like to share? I'm going to take this one. The first financial mistake that anybody makes is spending more than you earn. Second, you're not saving. 3, knowledge, lack of knowledge. How much time do you spend understanding and learning about your financial well-being versus anything else that you do in your life? Watching TV, going to the game, or whatever. So we hit a couple of those questions. Jackie's got a hand up. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill and Dennis, wow.
You nailed it.
You know,
You
we said, hold on.
You nailed it.
Now we've got to, we're going to bring in, we're going to let our 2 featured experts take a break. And then we've got our final segment of this episode and member spotlight with Janine Mills, and we're going to find out a little bit about her. Thank you, guys. We are back from break, and I'm so excited that we have Janine Mills here. She's an ICABA member. Janine is a designer, and she's going to tell you a little bit about what she does. And, you know, one of the things we find out in this world is that you will not just have multiple jobs, you will have multiple careers. So I know she's had a career in dance, she had a career in real estate, she's had a career in design, and she's also an actress and a model. But today, we're going to talk to her about design, and she's going to tell us about what she's doing in that space. And Janine, share with the audience a little bit about what you're doing in design.
Thank you. You know, design is really near and dear to my heart because home is a place where it's your refuge. It's a place where you come back, and it should reflect who you are, but it should make you feel as if you're in your safe place. And with all the things that are going around in the world right now, I think it's more important that we all have a home that could really feel like home and a place of safety and a place of refuge. And honestly, I feel like all human beings deserve to have that. Hopefully, one day, more humans, and we can all have that. That would be great. So that's my contribution to helping create that for people and having that sense of home.
Well, you know, Janine, I think that one of the things that makes you really uniquely able to support people in terms of creating that experience and that space that they want to live in is because you have done so many different things. You know, as a realtor, you talk to a lot of people about their aspirations for their home. What do they want? What does it look like? So tell me a little bit about something that you have found that you're able to do when you're meeting with someone and they're trying to design that space that you kind of go to that you know that can really help them get what they want.
I think the first step is just having an overall vision and having a plan. I think sometimes, you know, in our homes we see something that we don't like, we want to change this or change that, but we don't figure out how it fits into the whole. And so we start attacking it piecemeal, and then we end up with something that feels like, you know, it's very disjointed and piecemeal. So I think that being, you know, on the outside as sort of an observer, I can help them figure out what is the overall plan and how does everything come together.
Well, I am so happy that you're a member of ICABA and you're doing a great job. Anybody out here who's looking to, you've got a home, a space, an office that you're looking for some design work for, they don't come better than Janine Mills Interior Design. So I'm just threw that out there, and so that was a free plug. And so thank you very much, audience, for being here today for the inaugural episode for Millionaire Moves, The Wealth Choice.